All right, so that was track one, Alexander Hamilton. What we're going to discuss here, I'm going to kind of go in a certain order as I discuss this. First, I'm going to try to talk about general story elements this is accomplishing that might be applicable to your things. Then I will probably go into maybe some just tricks that Miranda pulled in this to bring your attention to the writing there, and then we'll have just a brief discussion on anything you're noticing, and we'll move on. First thing I want to let you know is for the next class, to kind of participate to this, I'd like you guys to read in the Hamilton the Revolution, chapter 19, 23, and 25. So there's 29, or 19, 23, 25. And, all right, so the first thing that this song is doing is in musicals we have a thing that's called Ordinary World, kind of similar to what we talked about in The Hero's Journey. Right? The goal of this song in the musical and in the book is to kind of just set up what the audience is going to experience, what the audience is going to experience, what's the world like. In a musical, I would often say that they also put kind of the herald's call in this first part. For instance, it's a mix in musicals versus your world. But how many people watch like various James Bond or action movies where often it opens with an action sequence before we meet the character? I would say this is kind of in a similar vein what musicals tend to do. They want to get you kind of right in the middle of what's going on really quick before they get into the specifics. They usually want to introduce you to the main characters and what's going to happen so that you get a relationship with all of those. And those are the major tricks. A couple things he's doing that you might want to think about is he does foreshadowing. Who knows can somebody say what foreshadowing is? Sure, good.
Yeah, kind of like giving hints about what's going to happen without actually saying it.
Yeah. What does foreshadowing do for a reader or watcher?
Keep you on the edge of your seat, kind of thing. Like, ooh, what is this? What is this? What are you talking about? What is this foreshadowing?
Yeah. Is the end of this book good? Right here.
It either consciously or subconsciously prepares us for future events of the story.
Yeah. So is the ending a surprise?
No.
What do they actually say in here?
Aaron Burr says, "I'm the guy who shot him."
Yeah, me, I'm the damn fool who shot him. So we know what's coming on. But what other things are foreshadowed, so to speak? What hints do they give us? What other? It all kind of happens in one little section.
That he's going to be great, maybe, in the future.
Yeah, this is going to be great. But right away, introducing the characters. We conclude with Burr saying, "I'm the damn fool that shot him." But we have Mulligan and Lafayette says we fought with him. Lawrence, I died for him. So we know somebody else is going to die. Eliza, Angelica, and Maria all say, "Me, I loved him." Kind of foreshadows the love triangle. We're hitting that off. And so there's a bunch of foreshadowing that happens in here. Now, some other things. So those are things you might want to think about in your project. Do you want to foreshadow? Do you want to do an earlier thing? Do you want to say what happens? Basically, by foreshadowing, you're kind of saying, it's kind of like the movie Titanic. We all knew it was going to sink. So what's interesting is how we get there. And by foreshadowing, you're also just subtly saying that it's about the journey, not about the end. In this thing, there's a lot of words in this show, so this may not specifically apply to your project, but I think it's worth just looking at, especially since the show's class is called Alexander Hamilton, of what's going on in this number. Anybody know any of the literary techniques that he uses throughout? I'm first going to say is, do you know what consonance is? Who can define consonance? Yeah.
It's the use of harder sounds, right?
Yeah, it's the repetition of harder sounds, specifically the consonants. Founding father, is just right there. He's a little thing. Scotsman spot, squalor. It's these repetitions that he's using in the thing. they're also designed to make these words sink in faster, as fast as they go. What is assonance?
Is that when,
Yeah.
like, the last word has a similar sound as like the following?
Assonance is when it's not a rhyme, but it's basically the vowel sound. You know, it sounds similar. Let me find something that's an assonance but not a rhyme. Slaughtered and carted, you know, the away across the waves, you know, away and waves doesn't rhyme, but the AA.
When he was dead, his father split, full of it,
Yeah.
ridden.
Yeah, ridden, yeah. It doesn't rhyme, split knit rhyme, then the ridden takes that short I. So these are techniques that they use to make things work, and you know, modern hip hop uses that intensely. There's been a few things online where some people have like really manically delved into ripping apart Eminem's lyrics, and you know, the density of assonance and consonants and alliteration. So alliteration is a kind of repetitive consonants, you know, right in a row. Consonants can also happen in the middle of a word. Scotsman and got spot, you got both the assonants and the consonants with the ot in there. So these are techniques that are used to help you sink in, and ideally these happen on words that are important meaning, you know, so that by drawing your attention to them that way, the meaning becomes more clear. And then rhyme, obviously with the musical. What's the purpose of rhyme?
They're catchy.
What?
They're catchy.
Catchy. It gives like kind of a full circle experience, but also the rhymes are what you notice the most.
So I'm gonna say you remember them more.
Yeah, in musical theater, it's considered very bad form if the rhymes aren't part of the most important essence of what you're trying to get. Because a lot of times these go so fast. In musicals, you know, always say we have a cast album here, but musicals ultimately live in time. You may have a guess what I mean by they live in time.
They follow certain trends of the time.
As an art form, can you rewind?
Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, by live time, it passes in real time in front of you, and you don't generally. I mean, obviously, you can go buy a ticket and go see again. And now, modern days, sometimes they'll video it and put it up, which it isn't yet. You know, so it exists in time. You don't get a chance to savor. You can't pause and go to the bathroom. You can't, you know, pause and wait and savor and go on. You've got to absorb this all as it's going in a satisfying way. He's got a lot. How many of you the first time you listened to this album were like, ugh? You know, I mean, you might have been, I think, enjoyed it right away, but it's a lot to take in, right? Characters, figuring everything out, what's going on in. At least it's kind of catchy, and you know. But all these techniques are definitely used to help that sink in. All right, so and by the way, my goal is going to be, with each of these 4 lectures, to kind of go very specifically. I'm going to go up through crossing the first threshold in the day, which is generally the first quarter of the musical. We're going to split up Act 2 of a traditional story into the next 2 lectures, and then from road back to the end on the 4th and final lecture, which is kind of about a quarter of the musical. All right, so let's